Hi guys, how you doing? Just tidying up a couple of things because I'm gonna work on my blanket while we're doing this because I'm not set up to make it so you can see what I'm doing with the thread. Definitely not. So I'm just going to put it away for now and get onto that later. So, how are you doing? I am all right. Live chat in a tweeter. Oh, come on. Scroll. View on watch page. And I'm sorry if anything comes through this. There we go. That's, oh, I can play it. I just can't mute it. There we go. And, share. Where's the share button go? There it is. Share. Share it on Twitter. The calendar. Tweet. Tweet. And retweet with comment. The club. There we go. And G and Wonder Lady. Tweet. There we go. So this is all the beads that I had of this cut type, and they're not very symmetric in that they're quite, the thicknesses are different and all that kind of stuff. So I made a beaded rope. Ends up being that big, just fitting around my wrist. I gotta put a clasp or something on there yet, but it just barely goes like this on my wrist. So I gotta do something with it because I had those beads for a very long time because I didn't know what to do with it. I had done something else with some, and but these ones are so uneven that I couldn't figure out quite what to do with it. So this is what I did with it. It works. It works. Just gonna move things away. And my rainbow. I wish you could see the colors better. Like, I really like the colors, but this purple it's more of a dusty purple, and I don't like it as much. This blue doesn't look like the color blue that's on the screen there. That kind of bugs me, but what do you do? Yay, beads! I took those out because they're a lot less, they don't get punctured so easy as a bag on the table does. And I just need to move that over there and get this one over here because this thing will open up. And the Scoopy over there, and that one over here. I'll put that there. And then we'll be ready. So, I also did this. It's a whole bunch of different sizes This is size 15 bead with sewing thread. This is size 15 bead with a different sewing thread. This is size 15 bead with a button thread, and this one was with the size 15 with a extra strong thread. And then I did up this delicate beads, size 11 delicate beads. They turned out nice. I know you can't see it very well, but. And then there's two that are size 11 seed beads. One's using the button thread, and the other one's using crochet cotton size 30. And these ones are size 8 beads, and this is size 6. And they're both using size 10 crochet thread. So yay! You are. I don't see you at all, Dave. Not at all. Not at all. No. Oops, wrong account. That's okay. You can be Dave here. That's okay. You can. People will know that you're binge listening to fairy tales with a strange girl doing strange things. So I'm going to continue on with this one today while we listen to some more. I've got about an hour-ish planned because there's 2 hours left of this book. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that one lady that, oh my gosh, she's, you know the lady I'm talking about. You'll be asleep in a half an hour. Yeah, see, I told you it wouldn't matter. So, we'll start her up and sleep tight. Dave, critical ball. Sleep tight.
Chapter 47 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Linda Marie Nielsen, Vancouver, BC. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Memorial Cherry Tree. Footnote. This story begins on the 17th of February in the second year of Kenkyu. As the first year of Kenkyu was in 1190 and the last in 1199, the precise date is February 17th, 1192. In footnote. In the compound or enclosure of the temple called Bukoji at Tadatsui, High Cross Street, formerly called Yabugashita, which means under the bush, in Kyoto, a curio dealer had his little shop. His name was Kihachi. Kihachi had not much to sell, but what little he had was usually good. Consequently, his was a place that the better people looked into when they came to pray, to see, if not to buy, for they knew full well if there was a good thing to be bought, Kihachi bought it. It was a small and ancient kind of Christie's. In fact, except that things were not sold by auction. One day, the day on which this story starts, Kiachi was sitting in his shop ready either to gossip or sell, when in walked a young knight or court noble, Kuji, the Japanese called him in those days, and very different was such an one from a knight of a feudal lord or of a daimyo, who was usually a blusterer. This particular knight had been to the temple to pray. "You have many pretty and interesting things here," said he. "May I come in and look at them until this shower of rain has passed? My name is Sakata, and I belong to the court." Come in," said Kihachi. "By all means. Some of my things are pretty, and all are undoubtedly good, but the gentry part with little at present. One wants to live 2 lives of 100 years each in my trade, 100 of distress, revolution, and trouble, wherein one may collect the things cheap, and the next 100 of peace, wherein one may sell them and enjoy the proceeds. My business is rotten and unprofitable, yet, in spite of that, I love the things I buy, and often look at them long before I put them up for sale. Where, sir, are you bound for? I see that you are going to travel, by the clothes you wear and carry." "That's true," answered Sakata. "You are very shrewd. I am going to travel as far as Toba, in Yamato, to see my dearest friend, who has been taken suddenly and mysteriously ill. It is feared he may not live until I get there." "At Toba?" answered the old curio dealer. "Pardon me if I ask the name of your friend." "Certainly," said Sakata. "My friend's name is Matsui." "Then," said the curio dealer, "he is the gentleman who is said to have killed the ghost or spirit of the old cherry tree near Toba, growing in the grounds of the temple in which he lives at present with the priests. The people say that this cherry tree is so old that the spirit left it. It appeared in the form of a beautiful woman, and Matsui, either fearing or not liking it, killed it, with the result, they say, that from that very evening, which was about 10 days ago, your friend Matsui has been sick. And I may add that when the spirit was killed the tree withered and died." Sakata, thanking Kihachi for this information, went on his way, and eventually found his friend Matsui being carefully nursed by the priest of the Shonen Temple, Toba, with whom he was closely connected. Soon after the young knight had left the old curio dealer Kihachi in his shop it began to snow, and so it continued and appeared likely to continue for some time. Kihachi therefore put up his shutters and retired to bed, as is often very sensibly done in Japan, and he no doubt retired with many old wood carvings to rub and give an ancient appearance to during the period of darkness. Not very late in the evening there was a knock at the shutters. Kihachi, not wishing to get out of his warm bed, shouted, "Who are you? Come back in the morning. I do not feel well enough to get up to night." "But you must get up. I am sent to sell you a good kakemono," called the voice of a young girl, so sweetly and entreatingly that the old curio dealer got up, and after much fumbling with his numbed fingers opened the door. Snow had fallen thickly, but now it was clear moonlight, and Kihachi saw standing before him a beautiful girl of 15, barefooted, and holding in her hands a kakemono half unfolded. "See," said she, "I have been sent to sell you this." She was a daughter of Matsui of Toba, she said. The old man called her in, and saw that the picture was that of a beautiful woman standing up. It was well done, and the old man took a fancy to it. "I will give you 1 rio for it," said he, and to his astonishment the young girl accepted his offer eagerly, so much so that he thought that perhaps she had stolen it. Being a curio dealer, he said nothing on the point, but paid her the money. She ran away with haste. "Yes, she has stolen it undoubtedly," muttered the old man. "But what am I supposed to know about that? The kakemono is worth fully 50 rio if it is worth a cent, and not often do such chances come to me." So delighted was Kihachi with his purchase, he lit his lamp, hung the picture in his kakemono corner, and sat watching it. It was indeed a beautiful woman well painted, and worth more even than the 50 rio he at first thought. But, by all the saints, it seems to change! Yes, it is no longer a beautiful woman. The face has changed to that of a fearful and horrible figure. The face of the woman has become haggard. It is covered with blood. The eyes open and shut, and the mouth gasps. Kihachi feels blood dropping on his head. It comes from a wound in the woman's shoulder. To shut out so horrid a sight, he put his head under the bedclothes, and remained thus sleeplessly until dawn. When he opened his eyes, the kakemono was the same as when he had bought it, a beautiful woman. He supposed that his delight in having made a good bargain must have been made in dream, so he thought nothing more about the horror. Kihachi, however, was mistaken. The kakemono again kept him awake all night, showing the same bloody face, and occasionally even shrieking. Kihachi got no sleep, and perceived that instead of a cheap bargain he had got a very expensive one, for he felt that he must go to Toba and return it to Matsui, and he knew that he could claim no expenses. After fully 2 days of travel, Kihachi reached the Shonen Temple near Toba, where he asked to see Matsui. He was ushered ceremoniously into his room. The invalid was better, but on being handed the kakemono with the figure of the lady painted on it, he turned pale, tore it to fragments, and threw it into the temple fire. Iori footnote. The story says furnace, but unless cremation went on in those days, it must have been the inori, open floor fire, or else, if a Shinto temple, an open air bonfire, which is lit on certain days. End footnote. After which he jumped in with his daughter himself, and both were burned to death. Kihachi was sick for many days after this sight. The story soon spread over the whole surrounding country. Prince Nijo, governor of Kyoto, had a thorough inquiry made into the circumstances of the case, and it was found beyond doubt that the trouble to Matsui and his family came through his having killed the spirit of the old cherry tree. The spirit, to punish him and show that there was invisible life in old and dead things, and often of the best, appeared to Matsui as a beautiful woman being killed. The spirit went into his beautiful picture and haunted him. Prince Nijo had a fine cherry tree planted on the spot of the old to commemorate the event, and it is called the Memorial Cherry Tree to this day. End of chapter 47. Recording by Linda Marie Nielsen, Vancouver, BC.
Chapter 48 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by David McKay. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Jirohei Cherry Tree, Kyoto. The Japanese say that ghosts in inanimate nature generally have more liveliness than ghosts of the dead. There is an old proverb which says something to the effect that the ghosts of trees love not the willow, by which I suppose is meant that they do not assimilate. In Japanese pictures of ghosts, there is nearly always a willow tree. Whether Hokusai, the ancient painter, or Okyo Maruyama, a famous painter of Kyoto of more recent date, was responsible for the pictures with ghosts and willow trees, I do not know. But certainly Maruyama painted many ghosts under willow trees, the first from his wife, who lay sick. Exactly what this has to do with the following story, I cannot see, but my storyteller began with it. In the northern part of Kyoto is a Shinto temple called Hirano. It is celebrated for the fine cherry trees that grow there. Among them is an old dead tree which is called Jirohei, and is much cared for. But the story attached to it is little known, and has not been told, I believe, to a European before. During the cherry blossom season, many people go to view the trees, especially at night. Close to the Jirohei cherry tree, many years ago, was a large and prosperous tea house, once owned by Jirohei, who had started in quite a small way. So rapidly did he make money, he attributed his success to the virtue of the old cherry tree, which he accordingly venerated. Jirohei paid the greatest respect to the tree, attending to its wants. He prevented boys from climbing it and breaking its branches. The tree prospered, and so did he. One morning a samurai, of the blood and thunder kind, walked up to the Hirano temple, and sat down at Jirohei's tea house to take a long look at the cherry blossom. He was a powerful, dark-skinned, evil-faced man, about 5 feet 8 in height. "Are you the landlord of this tea house?" asked he. "Yes, sir," Jirohei answered meekly. "I am. What can I bring you, sir?" "Nothing, I thank you," said the samurai. "What a fine tree you have here opposite your tea house." "Yes, sir, it is to the fineness of the tree that I owe my prosperity." "Thank you, sir, for expressing your appreciation of it." "I want a branch off the tree," quoth the samurai, "for a geisha." "Deeply as I regret it, I am obliged to refuse your request. I must refuse everybody. The temple priests gave orders to this effect before they let me erect this place. No matter who it may be that asks, I must refuse. Flowers may not even be picked off the tree, though they may be gathered when they fall. Please, sir, remember that there is an old proverb which tells us to cut the plum tree for our vases, but not the cherry." "You seem to be an unpleasantly argumentative person for your station in life," said the samurai. "When I say that I want a thing, I mean to have it, so you had better go and cut it." "However much you may be determined, I must refuse," said Jirohei, quietly and politely. "And however much you may refuse, the more determined am I to have it. I, as a samurai, said I should have it. Do you think that you can turn me from my purpose? If you have not the politeness to get it, I will take it by force." Suiting his action to his words, the samurai drew a sword about 3 feet long and was about to cut off the best branch of all. Jirohei clung to the sleeve of his sword arm, crying, "I have asked you to leave the tree alone, but you would not. Please, take my life instead." "You are an insolent and annoying fool. I gladly follow your request." And saying this, The samurai stabbed Jirohei slightly to make him let go the sleeve. Jirohei did let go, but he ran to the tree, where in a further struggle over the branch, which was cut, in spite of Jirohei's defense, he was stabbed again, this time fatally. The samurai, seeing that the man must die, got away as quickly as possible, leaving the cut branch in full bloom on the ground. Hearing the noise, the servants came out of the house, followed by Jirohei's poor old wife. It was seen that Jirohei himself was dead, but he clung to the tree as firmly as in life, and it was fully an hour before they were able to get him away. From this time things went badly with the tea house. Very few people came, and such as did come were poor and spent but little money. Besides, from the day of the murder of Jirohei, the tree had begun to fade and die. In less than a year it was absolutely dead. The tea house had to be closed for want of funds to keep it open. The old wife of Jirohei had hanged herself on the dead tree a few days after her husband had been killed. People said that ghosts had been seen about the tree and were afraid to go there at night. Even neighboring tea houses suffered, and so did the temple, which for a time became unpopular. The samurai who had been the cause of all this kept his secret, telling no one but his own father what he had done, and he expressed to his father his intention of going to the temple to verify the statements about the ghosts. Thus, on the 3rd day of March in the 3rd year of Keiyo, that is, 42 years ago, he started one night alone and well armed, in spite of his father's attempts to stop him. He went straight to the old dead tree and hid himself behind a stone lantern. To his astonishment, at midnight the dead tree suddenly came out into full bloom, and looked just as it had been when he cut the branch and killed Jirohei. On seeing this, he fiercely attacked the tree with his keen-edged sword. He attacked it with mad fury, cutting and slashing, and he heard a fearful scream which seemed to him to come from inside the tree. After half an hour he became exhausted, but resolved to wait until daybreak to see what damage he had wrought. When day dawned, the samurai found his father lying on the ground, hacked to pieces, and of course dead. Doubtless the father had followed to try and see that no harm came to the son. The samurai was stricken with grief and shame. Nothing was left but to go and pray to the gods for forgiveness and to offer his life to them, which he did by disemboweling himself. From that day the ghost appeared no more, and people came as before to view the cherry bloom by night as well as by day. So they do even now. No one has ever been able to say whether the ghost which appeared was the ghost of Jirohei, or that of his wife, or that of the cherry tree which had died when its limb had been severed. End of chapter 48. Recording by David McKay.
Chapter 49 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Snow Ghost. Perhaps there are not many, even in Japan, who have heard of the Yuki-onna, snow ghost. It is little spoken of, except in the higher mountains, which are continually snow-clad in the winter. Those who have read Lafcadio Hearn's books will remember a story of the Yuki-onna, made much of on account of its beautiful telling, but in reality not better than the following. Up in the northern province of Echigo, opposite Sado Island on the Japan Sea, snow falls heavily. Sometimes there is as much as 20 feet of it on the ground, and many are the people who have been buried in the snows and never found until spring. Not many years ago, 3 companies of soldiers, with the exception of 3 or 4 men, were destroyed in Aomori, and it was many weeks before they were dug out, dead of course. Mysterious disappearances naturally give rise to fancies in a fanciful people, and from time immemorial The snow ghost has been one with the people of the north, while those of the south say that those of the north take so much sake that they see snow-covered trees as women. Be that as it may, I must explain what a farmer called Kyozimon saw. In the village of Hoi, which consisted only of 11 houses, very poor ones at that, lived Kyozimon. He was poor, and doubly unfortunate in having lost both his son and his wife. He led a lonely life. In the afternoon on the 19th of January of the 3rd year of Tempo, that is 1833, a tremendous snowstorm came on. Kyuzemon closed the shutters and made himself as comfortable as he could. Towards 11 o'clock at night he was awakened by a rapping at his door. It was a peculiar rap and came at regular intervals. Kyuzemon sat up in bed, looked towards the door, and did not know what to think of this. The rapping came again, and with it the gentle voice of a girl. Thinking that it might be one of his neighbor's children wanting help, Kyozemon jumped out of bed, but when he got to the door he feared to open it. Voice and rapping coming again just as he reached it, he sprang back with a cry, "Who are you? What do you want?" "Open the door! Open the door!" came the voice from outside. "Open the door! Is that likely, until I know who you are and what you are doing out so late and on such a night?" "But you must let me in. How can I proceed farther in this deep snow? I do not ask for food, but only for shelter." "I am very sorry, but I have no quilts or bedding. I can't possibly let you stay in my house." "I don't want quilts or bedding, only shelter," pleaded the voice. "I can't let you in anyway," shouted Kyozemon. "It is too late and against the rules and the law." Saying which, Kyozemon rebarred his door with a strong piece of wood, never once having ventured to open a crack in the shutters to see who his visitor might be. As he turned towards his bed, with a shudder he beheld the figure of a woman standing beside it, clad in white, with her hair down her back. She had not the appearance of a ghost. Her face was pretty, and she seemed to be about 25 years of age. Kyuzemon, taken by surprise and very much alarmed, called out, "Who and what are you, and how did you get in? Where did you leave your geta?" "I can come in anywhere when I choose," said the figure, "and I am the woman who you would not let in. I require no clogs, for I whirl along over the snow, sometimes even flying through the air. I am on my way to visit the next village, but the wind is against me. That is why I wanted you to let me rest here. If you will do so, I shall start as soon as the wind goes down. In any case, I shall be gone by morning." "I should not so much mind letting you rest if you were an ordinary woman. I should in fact be glad, but I fear spirits greatly, as my forefathers have done," said Kyuzemon. "Be not afraid. You have a butsudan?" said the figure. "Yes, I have a butsudan," said Kyozemon. "But what can you want to do with that?" "You say you are afraid of the spirits, of the effect that I may have upon you. I wish to pay my respects to your ancestors' tablets, and assure their spirits that no ill shall befall you through me. Will you open and light the butsudan?" "Yes," said Kyuzemon, with fear and trembling. "I will open the butsudan and light the lamp. Please pray for me as well, for I am an unfortunate and unlucky man. But you must tell me in return who and what spirit you are." "You want to know much, but I will tell you," said the spirit. "I believe you are a good man. My name is Oyasu. I am the daughter of Yazemon, who lives in the next village. My father, as perhaps you may have heard, is a farmer, and he adopted into his family, and as a husband for his daughter, Isiburo. Isiburo is a good man, but on the death of his wife last year he forsook his father-in-law and went back to his old home. It is principally for that reason that I am about to seek and remonstrate with him now." "Am I to understand," said Kyuzaemon, "that the daughter who was married to Isaburo is the one who perished in the snow last year? If so, you must be the spirit of Oyasu, or Isaburo's wife?" "Yes, that is right," said the spirit. "I was Oyasu, the wife of Isaburo, who perished now a year ago in the great snowstorm, of which tomorrow will be the anniversary." Kyuzaemon, with trembling hands, lit the lamp in the little butsudan, mumbling "Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu," with a fervor which he had never felt before. When this was done, he saw the figure of the Yuki-onna, the snow spirit, advance, but there was no sound of footsteps as she glided to the altar. Kyuzaemon retired to bed, where he promptly fell asleep, but shortly afterwards he was disturbed by the voice of the woman bidding him farewell. Before he had time to sit up, she disappeared, leaving no sign. The fire still burned in the butsudan. Kyuzaemon got up at daybreak and went to the next village to see Isaburo, whom he found living with his father-in-law, Yaezemon. "Yes," said Isaburo, "it was wrong of me to leave my late wife's father when she died. I am not surprised that on cold nights when it snows I have been visited continually by my wife's spirit as a reproof. Early this morning I saw her again, and I resolved to return. I have only been here 2 hours as it is." On comparing notes, Kyuzaemon and Isaburo found that directly the spirit of Oyasu had left the house of Kyuzaemon, she appeared to Isaburo at about half an hour after midnight, and stayed with him until he had promised to return to her father's house and help him to live in his old age. That is roughly my story of the Yuki-onna. All those who die by the snow and cold become spirits of snow, appearing when there is snow, just as the spirits of those who are drowned in the sea only appear in stormy seas. Even to the present day, in the north, priests say prayers to appease the spirits of those who have died by snow, and to prevent them from haunting people who are connected with them. End of chapter 49.
Chapter 50 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Maria Melodia Carey. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Snow Tomb. Footnote. Told to me by Fukuchi in connection with the firelights in Foxes. Carefully translated by Mr. Watanabe of the prefectural government. End of footnote. Many years ago there lived a young man of the samurai class who was much famed for his skill in fencing in what was called the style of Yagyu. So adept was he earned by teaching under his master no less than 30 barrels of rice and 2 rations, which, I am told, vary from 1 to 5 sho a month. As one sho is .666 feet square, our young samurai, Rokugo Yakeji, was well off. The seat of his success was at Minamiwari Gesui, Hongo Yedo. His teacher was Sudo Jirozaemon, and the school was at Ishiwaraku. Rokugo was in no way proud of his skill. It was the modesty of the youth, coupled with cleverness, that had prompted the teacher to make his pupil an assistant master. The school was one of the best in Tokyo, and there were over 100 pupils. One January the pupils were assembled to celebrate the new year, and on this, the 7th day of it, were drinking nanakusa, a kind of sloppy rice in which 7 grasses and green vegetables are mixed, said to keep off all diseases for the year. The pupils were engaged in ghost stories, each trying to tell a more alarming one than his neighbor, until the hair of many was practically on end, and it was late in the evening. It was the custom to keep the 7th of January in this way, and they took their turns by drawing numbers. 100 candles were placed in a shed at the end of the garden, and each teller of a story took his turn at bringing one away until they had all told a story. This was to upset, if possible, the bragging of the pupil who said he did not believe in ghosts and feared nothing. At last it came to the turn of Rakugo. After fetching his candle from the end of the garden, he spoke as follows. My friends, listen to my story. It is not very dreadful, but it is true. Some 3 years ago, when I was 17, my father sent me to Gifu in Mino province. I reached on the way a place called Nakimura about 10 o'clock in the evening. Outside the village, on some wild, uncultivated land, I saw a curious fireball. It moved here and there without noise, came quite close to me, and then went away again, moving generally as if looking for something. It went round and round over the same ground time after time. It was generally 5 feet off the ground, but sometimes it went lower. I will not say that I was frightened, because subsequently I went to the Miyoshiya Inn and to bed without mentioning what I had seen to anyone, but I can assure you all that I was very glad to be in the house. Next morning, my curiosity got the better of me. I told the landlord what I had seen, and he recounted to me a story. He said, about 200 years ago, a great battle was fought here, and the general who was defeated was himself killed. When his body was recovered early in the action, it was found to be headless. The soldiers thought that the head must have been stolen by the enemy. One, more anxious than the rest to find his master's head, continued to search while the action went on. While searching, he himself was killed. Since that evening, 200 years ago, the fireball has been burning after 10 o'clock. The people from that time till now have called it Kubi Sagashi no Hi. Footnote, the head-seeking fire. End of footnote. As the master of the inn finished relating this story, my friends, I felt an unpleasant sensation in the heart. It was the first thing of a ghostly kind that I had seen. The pupils agreed that the story was strange. Rokugo pushed his toes into his geta clogs and started to fetch his candle from the end of the garden. He had not proceeded far into the garden before he heard the voice of a woman. It was not very dark, as there was snow on the ground, but Rokugo could see no woman. He had got as far as the candles when he heard the voice again and, turning suddenly, saw a beautiful woman of some 18 summers. Her clothes were fine. The obi, belt, was tied in the tateyano jiri, shape of the arrow standing erect as an arrow in a quiver. The dress was all of the pine and bamboo pattern, and her hair was done in the Shimada style. Rokugo stood looking at her with wonder and admiration. A minute's reflection showed him that it could be no girl, and that her beauty had almost made him forget that he was a samurai. No, it is no real woman, it is a ghost. What an opportunity for me to distinguish myself before all my friends. Saying which, he drew his sword, tempered by the famous Morie Shinkai, and with one downward cut, severed head, body, and all into halves. He ran, seized the candle, and took it back to the room where the pupils were awaiting him. There he told the story, and begged them to come and see the ghost. All the young men looked at one another, none of them being partial to ghosts in what you may call real life. None cared to venture, but by and by Yamamoto Jonosuke, with better courage than the rest, said, "I will go," and dashed off. As soon as the other pupils saw this, they, also gathering pluck, went forth into the garden. When they came to the spot where the dead ghost was supposed to lie, they found only the remains of a snowman which they themselves had made during the day, and this was cut in half from head to foot, just as Rokugo had described. They all laughed. Several of the young samurai were angry, for they thought that Rokugo had been making fools of them, but when they returned to the house, they soon saw that Rokugo had not been trifling. They found him sitting with an air of great haughtiness, and thinking that his pupils would now indeed see how able a swordsman he was. However, they looked at Rokugo scornfully, and addressed him thus: "Indeed, we have received remarkable evidence of your ability. Even the small boy who throws a stone at a dog would have had the courage to do what you did." Rokugo became angry and called them insolent. He lost his temper to such an extent that for a moment his hand flew to his sword hilt, and he even threatened to kill one or two of them. The samurai apologized for their rudeness, but added, "Your ghost was only the snowman we made ourselves this morning. That is why we tell you that a child need not fear to attack it." At this information, Rokugo was confounded, and he in his turn apologized for his temper. Nevertheless, he said he could not understand how it was possible for him to mistake a snowman for a female ghost. Puzzled and ashamed, he begged his friends not to say any more about the matter, but keep it to themselves. Thereupon he bade them farewell and left the house. It was no longer snowing, but the snow lay thick upon the ground. Rokugo had had a good deal of sake, and his gait was not oversteady as he made his way home to Warigesui. When he passed near the gates of the Korinji temple, he noticed a woman coming faster than he could understand through the temple grounds. He leaned against the fence to watch her. Her hair was disheveled, and she was all out of order. Soon a man came running behind her with a butcher's knife in his hand, and shouted as he caught her, "You wicked woman! You have been unfaithful to your poor husband, and I will kill you for it, for I am his friend." Stabbing her 5 or 6 times, he did so, and then moved away. Rokugo, resuming his way homewards, thought what a good friend must be the man who had killed the unfaithful wife. A bad woman justly rewarded with death, thought he. Rokugo had not gone very far, however, when, to his utter astonishment, he met face to face the woman whom he had just seen killed. She was looking at him with angry eyes, and she said, "How can a brave samurai watch so cruel a murder as you have just seen, enjoying the sight?" Rokugo was much astonished. "Do not talk to me as if I were your husband," said he, "for I am not. I was pleased to see you killed for being unfaithful. Indeed, if you are the ghost of the woman, I shall kill you myself." Before he could draw his sword, the ghost had vanished. Rokugo continued his way, and on nearing his house he met a woman, who came up to him with horrible face and clenched teeth, as if in agony. He had had enough troubles with women that evening. They must be foxes who had assumed the forms of women, thought he, as he continued to gaze at this last one. At that moment he recollected that he had heard of a fact about fox women. It was that fire coming from the bodies of foxes and badgers is always so bright that even on the darkest night you can tell the color of their hair, or even the figures woven in the stuffs they wear when assuming the forms of men or women. It is clearly visible that one can 6 feet. Remembering this, Rokugo approached a little closer to the woman, and sure enough, he could see the pattern of her dress shown up as if fire were underneath. The hair, too, seemed to have fire under it. Knowing now that it was a fox he had to do with, Rokugo drew his best sword, the famous one made by Morie, and proceeded to attack carefully, for he knew he should have to hit the fox and not the spirit of the fox in the woman's form. It is said that whenever a fox or a badger transforms itself into human shape, the real presence stands behind the apparition. If the apparition appears on the left side, the presence of the animal himself is on the right. Rokugo made his attack accordingly, killing the fox and consequently the apparition. He ran to his house and called up his relations, who came flocking out with lanterns. Near a myrtle tree, which was almost 200 years old, they found the body, not of fox or badger, but of an otter. The animal was carried home. Next day, invitations were issued to all the pupils at the fencing school to come and see it, and a great feast was given. Rokugo had wiped away a great disgrace. The pupils erected a tomb for the beast. It is known as Yukidzuka, the snow tomb, and is still to be seen in the Korinji temple at Warigesui Honjo in Tokyo. End of chapter 50. Recording by Maria Melodia Carey.
Chapter 51 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by David McKay. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Dragon-Shaped Plum Tree. In the year 1716 of the Kyoto era, 191 years ago, there lived at Momoyama Fushimi an old gardener, Hambei, who was loved and respected for his kindliness of nature and his great honesty. Though a poor man, Hambei had saved enough to live on. and he had inherited a house and garden from his father. Consequently, he was happy. His favourite pastime was tending the garden and an extraordinarily fine plum tree, known in Japan as of the Furyo kind, which means lying dragon. Such trees are of great value and much sought after for the arrangement of gardens. Curiously enough, though one may see many beautiful ones, trees growing on mountains or on wild islands, they are very rarely touched except near the larger commercial centres. Indeed, the Japanese have almost a veneration for some of these fantastic Furyo-shaped trees, and leave them alone whether they be pines or plums. The tree in question Hambei loved so much that no offer people could make would induce him to part with it. So notoriously beautiful were the tints and curves of this old stunted tree, large sums had many times been offered for it. Hambei loved it not only for its beauty, but also because it had belonged to his father and grandfather. Now, in his old age, with his wife in her dotage and his children gone, it was his chief companion. In the autumn he tended it in its untidiness of dead and dying leaves. He felt sorry and sympathetic for it in its cold and bare state in November and December. But in January he was happily employed in watching the buds which would blossom in February. When they did bloom, it was his custom to let the people come at certain hours daily to see the tree and listen to stories of historical facts, and also to stories of romance regarding the plum tree, of which the Japanese mind is ever full. When this again was over, Hambei pruned and tied the tree. In the hot season he lingered under it smoking his pipe, and was often rewarded for his care by 2 or 3 dozen delicious plums, which he valued and loved as much, almost, as if they had been his own offspring. Thus, year after year, the tree had become so much Hambei's companion that a king's ransom would not have bought it from him. Alas, no man is destined to be let alone in this world. Someone is sure sooner or later to covet his property. It came to pass that a high official at the emperor's court heard of Hambei's Furyo tree and wanted it for his own garden. This dainagon sent his steward, Kotaro Naruse, to see Hambei with a view to purchase, never for a moment doubting that the old gardener would readily sell if the sum offered were sufficient. Kotaro Naruse arrived at Momoyama Fushimi, and was received with due ceremony. After drinking a cup of tea, he announced that he had been sent to inspect and make arrangements to take the Furyo plum tree for the dainagon. Hambei was perplexed. What excuse for refusal should he make to so high a personage? He made a fumbling and rather stupid remark, of which the clever steward soon took advantage. "On no account," said Hambei, "can I sell the old tree. I have refused many offers for it already." "I never said that I was sent to buy the tree for money," said Kotaro. "I said that I had come to make arrangements by which the dainagon could have it conveyed carefully to his palace, where he proposes to welcome it with ceremony and treat it with the greatest kindness. It is like taking a bride to the palace for the dainagon. Oh, what an honour for the plum tree to be united by marriage with one of such illustrious lineage! You should indeed be proud of such a union for your tree. Please be counselled by me and grant the dainagon's wish." What was Hambei now to say? Such a lowly-born person asked by a gallant samurai to grant a favour to no less a person than the dainagon. "Sir," he answered, "your request in behalf of the dainagon has been so courteously made that I am completely prevented from refusing. You must, however, tell the dainagon that the tree is a present, for I cannot sell it." Kotaro was greatly pleased with the success of his manoeuvres, and, drawing from his clothes a bag, said, "Please, as is customary on making a gift, accept this small one in return." To the gardener's great astonishment, the bag contained gold. He returned it to Kotaro, saying it was impossible to accept the gift. But on again being pressed by the smooth-tongued samurai, he retracted. The moment Kotaro had left, Hambei regretted this. He felt as if he had sold his own flesh and blood, as if he had sold his daughter to the dainagon. That evening he could not sleep. Towards midnight his wife rushed into his room, and, pulling him by the sleeve, shouted, You wicked old man! You villainous old rascal! At your age, too! Where did you get that girl? I have caught you! Don't tell me lies. You are going to beat me now. I see by your eyes. I am not surprised if you avenge yourself in this way. You must feel an old fool.' Hambei thought his wife had gone off her head for good this time. He had seen no girl. ' What is the matter with you, Oba-san ?' he asked. ' I have seen no girl, and do not know what you are talking about.' ' Don't tell me lies. I saw her. I saw her myself when I went down to get a cup of water.' ' Saw ? What do you mean ?' said Hambei. ' I think you've gone mad, talking of seeing girls. I did see her. I saw her weeping outside the door. And a beautiful girl she was, you old sinner. Only 17 or 18 years of age.' Hambei got out of bed to see for himself whether his wife had spoken the truth or had gone truly mad. On reaching the door he heard sobbing, and on opening beheld a beautiful girl. ' Who are you, and why here ?' asked Hambei. ' I am the spirit of the plum tree, which for so many years you have tended and loved, as did your father before you. I have heard, and grieve greatly at it, that an arrangement has been made whereby I am to be removed to the dainagon's gardens. It may seem good fortune to belong to a noble family, and an honour to be taken into it. I cannot complain. Yet I grieve at being moved from where I have been so long, and from you, who have so carefully tended to my wants. Can you not let me remain here a little longer, as long as I live? I pray you, do. I have made a promise to send you off on Saturday to the dainagon in Kyoto, but I cannot refuse your plea, for I love to have you here. Be easy in your mind, and I will see what can be done,' said Hambei. The spirit dried its tears, smiled at Hambei, and disappeared, as it were, into the stem of the tree, while Hambei's wife stood looking on in wonder, not at all reassured that there was not some trick on her husband's part. At last the fatal Saturday on which the tree was to be removed arrived, and Kotaro came with many men and a cart. Hambei told him what had happened, of the tree's spirit, and of what it had implored of him. ' Here, take the money, please,' said the old man. ' Tell the story to the dainagon as I tell it to you, and surely he will have mercy.' Kotaro was angry and said, ' How has this change come about ? Have you been drinking too much sake, or are you trying to fool me ? You must be careful, I warn you, else you shall find yourself headless. Even supposing the spirit of the tree did appear to you in the form of a girl, did it say that it would be sorry to leave your poor garden for a place of honour in that of the dainagon? You are a fool, and an insulting fool. How dare you return the dainagon's present? How could I explain such an insult to him, and what would he think of me? As you are not keeping your word, I will take the tree by force, or kill you in place of it.' Kotaro was greatly enraged. He kicked Hambei down the steps, and, drawing his sword, was about to cut off his head, when suddenly there was a little puff of wind, scented with plum blossom, and then there stood in front of Kotaro the beautiful girl, the spirit of the plum tree. ' Get out of my way, or you'll get hurt !' shouted Kotaro. ' No, I will not go away. You had better kill me, the spirit that has brought such trouble, instead of killing a poor innocent old man,' said the spirit. ' I don't believe in the spirits of plum trees,' said Kotaro. ' That you are a spirit is evident, but you are only that of an old fox, so I will comply with your request, and at all events kill you first.' No sooner had he said this than he made a cut with his sword, and he distinctly felt that he cut through a body. The girl disappeared, and all that fell was a branch of the plum tree and most of the flowers that were blooming. Kotaro now realized that what the gardener had told him was true, and made apologies accordingly. ' I will carry this branch to the dainagon,' said he, ' and see if he will listen to the story.' Thus was Hambei's life saved by the spirit of the tree. The dainagon heard the story, and was so moved that he sent the old gardener a kind message, and told him to keep the tree and the money, as an expression of his sorrow for the trouble which he had brought about. Alas, however, the tree withered and died soon after Kotaro's cruel blow, and in spite of Hambei's care. The dead stump was venerated for many years. End of chapter 51. Recording by David McKay. Chapter 52 of Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by David McKay. Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan by Richard Gordon Smith. The Chessboard Cherry Tree. Begin note. This story, with the exception of the ghost, I believe to be true, for the seppuku of Saito Ukan is just the kind of reasoning that would have been held out in the days of the story, and is even today possible in many cases. See a case quoted by Professor Chamberlain of the servant to an Englishman at Yokohama, and note the number of cases in the recent war. End note. In olden times, long before the misfortunes of Europeanization came to Japan, there lived at Kazamatsu, in Nakasatani, near Shichikwai Mura Shinjigun, Hitachi Province, a hot-headed old daimyo, Oda Sayemon. His castle stood at the top of a pine-clad hill about 3 miles from what is now known as Kamitachi Station on the Nippon Railway. Sayemon was noted for his bravery as a soldier, for his abominable play at go, or goban, and for his bad temper and violence when he lost, which was invariably. His most intimate friends among his retainers had tried hard to reform his manners after losing at go, but it was hopeless. All those who won from him he struck in the face with a heavy iron fan, such as was carried by warriors in those days, and he would just as readily have drawn his sword and cut his best friend's head off as been interfered with on those occasions. To be invited to play go with their lord was what all his bold samurai dreaded most. At last it was agreed among them that sooner than suffer the gross indignity of being struck by him when they won, they would let him win. After all, it did not much matter, there being no money on the game. Thus Sayemon's game grew worse and worse, for he never learned anything. Yet in his conceit he thought he was better than everybody. On the 3rd of March, in honor of his little daughter O Chiyo, he gave a dinner party to his retainers. The 3rd of March is the Doll's Day, Hina no Sekku, the day upon which girls bring out their dolls. People go from house to house to see them, and the little owners offer you sweet white sake in a doll's cup with much ceremony. Sayemon, no doubt, chose this day of feasting as a compliment to his daughter, for he gave sweet white sake after their food, to be drunk to the health of the dolls, instead of men's sake, which the guests would have liked much better. Sayemon himself absolutely disliked sweet sake. So as soon as the feast was over, he called Saito Ukan, one of his oldest and most faithful warriors, to come and play go with him, leaving the others to drink. Ukan, curiously enough, had not played with his lord before, and he was delighted that he had been chosen. He had made up his mind to die that evening, after giving his master a proper lesson. In a luxuriously decorated room there was placed a goban, chessboard, with 2 go cases containing the men, which are made of white and black stones. The white stones are usually taken by the superior player and the black by the inferior. Without any apology or explanation, Ukan took the case containing the white stones, and began to place them as if he were, without question, the superior player. Sayemon's temper began to work up, but he did not show it. So many games of go had his retainers allowed him to win lately, he was fully confident that he should win again, and that Ukan would have, in addition, to apologize for presuming to take the white stones. The game ended in a win for Ukan. "I must have another game," said Sayemon. "I was careless in that one. I will soon show you how I can beat you when I try." Again Sayemon was beaten, this time not without losing his temper, for his face turned red, his eyes looked devilish, and with a bullying voice full of passion he roared for a 3rd game. This also Ukan won. Sayemon's wrath knew no bounds. Seizing his iron fan, he was about to smite Ukan a violent blow in the face. His opponent caught him by the wrist and said, "My lord, what ideas have you about games? Your lordship seems to think curiously about them. It is the better player who wins, while the inferior must fail. If you fail to beat me at Go, it is because you are the inferior player. Is this manner of your lordship's in taking defeat from a superior up to the form of Bushido in a samurai, as we are taught it? Be counselled by me, your faithful retainer, and be not so hasty with your anger. It ill befits one in your lordship's high position." And with a look full of reproof at Sayemon, Ukon bowed almost to the ground. "You insolent rascal!" roared Sayemon. "How dare you speak to me like that? Don't move. Stand as you are with your head bowed, so that I may take it off." "Your sword is to kill your enemies, not your retainers and friends," said Ukon. "Sheathe your sword, my lord. You need not trouble yourself to kill me, for I have already done seppuku (disemboweled myself), in order to offer you the advice which I have given, and to save all others. See here, my lord." Ukon opened his clothes and exhibited an immense cut across his stomach. Sayemon stood for a minute, taken aback, and while he thus stood, Ukon spoke to him once more, telling him how he must control his temper and treat his subjects better. On hearing this advice again, Sayemon's passion returned. Seizing his sword, he rushed upon Ukon, and crying, "Not even by your dying spirit will I allow myself to be advised," made a furious cut at Ukon's head. He missed, and cut the go board in two instead. Then, seeing that Ukon was dying rapidly, Sayemon dropped beside him, crying bitterly and saying, "Much do I regret to see you thus die, O faithful Ukon. In losing you I lose my oldest and most faithful retainer. You have served me faithfully and fought most gallantly in all my battles. Pardon me, I beg of you. I will take your advice. It was surely a sign by the gods that they were displeased at my conduct when they made me miss your head with my sword and cut the go board." Ukon was pleased to find his lord at last repentant. He said, "I shall not even in death forget the relation between master and servant, and my spirit shall be with you and watch over your welfare as long as you live." Then Ukon breathed his last. Sayemon was so much moved by the faithfulness of Ukon that he caused him to be buried in his own garden, and he buried the broken go board with him. From that time on, the Lord Sayemon's conduct was completely reformed. He was good and kind to all his subjects, and all his people were happy. A few months after Ukon's death, a cherry tree sprang out of his grave. In 3 years the tree grew to be a fine one, and bloomed luxuriantly. On the 3rd of March in the 3rd year, the anniversary of Ukon's death, Sayemon was surprised to find it suddenly in bloom. He was looking at it, and thinking of watering it himself, as usual on that day, when he suddenly saw a faint figure standing by the stem of the tree. Just as he said, "You are, I know, the spirit of faithful Saito Ukon," the figure disappeared. Sayemon ran to the tree to pour water over the roots, when he noticed that the bark of some feet of the stem had all cracked up to the size and shape of the squares of a go board. He was much impressed. For years afterwards, until, in fact, Sayemon's death, the ghost of Ukon appeared on each 3rd of March. A fence was built round the tree, which was held sacred, and even to the present, they say, the tree is to be seen. End of chapter 52. Recording by David McKay.
That was it. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. My blanket's coming along. I'm done about half of it, I guess, or a little over half of it. It's just a lap blanket. So, excuse me, I'm yawning. So, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Suggest a book from LibriVox.org. and we'll get to it when we get to it. I believe there's one other one that's requested, and then we're good. This one I didn't realize it was so long, or else I probably would not have started it. I didn't realize it was 11 hours. I forgot to look. Oh well, that's okay. It's something different besides the usual fairy tales we hear. So thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful day. Love you. Bye.